Hello, I'm Nelson Ford at the Gunsmith, and my son has given me a list of uh, comments and questions here to address. I really enjoy doing these. Um, Thank you for all your insights. In one of your videos, you had talked about repairing hands by heating them up and tapping them with a hammer. If the hand is bent laterally, do you recommend heat? If you don't heat them up, they'll snap. You'll break them. You have to heat them up and you have to get them cherry red. I mean, they got to be red in the middle. And you can't leave your torch there. It'll go whoop, you'll just die. So you got to put your torch on it, watch it heat up. And then I always, look at the top of it in relation to someplace on the vise. And so when I got the heat on it, then I slowly tap it until I see it move a little. I do a little bit at a time. Don't get carried away. You'll be bending it back. And sometimes that doesn't work for all of them. I had one the other day. I had a small 29. I had 5 lugs in time and 1 knot. Thank God it wasn't a 7 or 8 shot because it had bigger lugs on the star. And I was able to take it all in there and make a mark in the middle of it and then go in and push it over towards the hand side and push that lug over a little bit and then put them all in time. And so, you're going to need heat. Heating up a hand will never hurt the metallurgy. In fact, if you let it cool too fast, it'll get too hard, it'll be a problem. You can leave a mark in a cylinder, not with your thumbnail, but without much more. Tap it with the side of a screwdriver, put a dent in it. It's not that hard. We're talking Rockwell 20, 30, 40, right in there, probably 42 on the high end. And so actually when I heat them up and bend them, I'll put the torch right below and keep the cold air from rushing up through the part. And I'll hold it there and let it lose that cherry red color and go back to a normal color before I pull the torch away. And I won't quench it in water. I want it to cool slowly so it stays soft, because it'll get hard. It'll get real hard and cause problems. We want to keep it around 35 thousandths Rockwell. We don't want it to get real hard. Hard is, people exaggerate about hard. Same thing with my cylinder shakes. Got inch shake, side shake, whatever. If you got 4 thousandths in front and 10 thousandths in back, and it gets into position with the cylinder, you put a range rod down it, it gets in position with the barrel, it's all good. You can shake it until your eyes fall out. It won't make a difference. Never tried them, but I hear Power Custom makes some non-mim hammers and triggers for revolvers. They probably make really good stuff. I don't know. I would not want to comment on their stuff because I know nothing about it. I do know that Smith has got a lot of experience with mim parts. They've been making them for 30 years now, and they're real good at it. I would stay with their product. What did you take on the original model 19.5? I'm thinking about getting one with a 6-inch barrel. It's got a square butt, deep dish medallions, etc. I hear it cannot handle 38 plus P because the cylinder is not being heat treated. Well, they weren't really good with metal until probably 1916. World War I is where we, during the wars, a lot of stuff happens militarily and, metallurgy. And so I wouldn't buy a 19.5 if you want to pipe up loads. I would go buy a brand new L frame or something. If you're going to buy a 1905, just put standard loads in it and don't do anything goofy. They're beautiful guns. We got to keep them in nice condition for our children and our grandchildren so they can enjoy them. Extremely informative video. What happened to the King Sight Company? I guess they did not have a patent. No, they had patents. They had all kinds of patents. D.W. King died during World War II. He was pretty old at the time, and he could only control so much of his company. And when people come in and change things, I'm not sure of the people that came in, but I think a guy named Williams came in and pulled a lot of money out of there. And the people that would challenge him, he got rid of them. People that were challenging him usually knew what they were doing, and they were good parts fitters. They were really good bluers. They were good at lots of different stuff. And so once they changed hands, and people thought it was like Remington taking over Marlin. They thought, well, we'll make these guns, it won't be a problem. and they let all the old employees go. Didn't take any of the old machinery from 100 Kennett Drive, and it didn't work out for them. It was a bunch of guys that owned a company that thought, no problem, we'll just tell them what to make and they'll make it. And it doesn't work like that. And that's what happened to King. You know, they sold parts to Ricky, bought their parts, Ricky Gun Sight Company. Bob Chow had some of their parts. I talked to a lot of people that had their parts. I made a lot of phone calls back then. Much harder to find stuff back then. Great presentation. I know what a brace of something is, but I can't find a brace of something. Maybe a brace is 5. Okay, let's see. One issue you have not addressed in 1911. What good does it do like working on Colt 1911 guns if you can't get Colt factory parts? I can get all the different Colt factory parts I need. I get their springs from Brownells. A lot of times Brownells doesn't keep stuff stocked like they used to. But if you get on the internet, you know, eBay is an amazing source for parts. Just put in what you want, and you know, discern with pictures in your eyes, and you'll find any Colt part you want. They're out there in spades. Let's see, Colt sells nothing direct. I ran into that in 1980 or 81 when I first opened my store. I called Colt, and they wanted a $2,400 minimum parts purchase. Back then, I paid less for my car, and they told me that they had a parts a distributor down in Tucson. I can't remember the name of it now. Guy was a great guy. He had a store down there, and he was buying $2,400 worth of parts at a time. And the first parts order you order, they're going to send you what they want, and then after that, you can order what you want. And so it was tougher back then, but I still managed to find parts. I keep Colt Sears and Sear springs in my store and disconnects because I need to put them in non-Colt guns when I have problems with them, and I need to make them operate. That trigger spring tool is really slick. I'll be making one of those. What is the highest limit on front cylinder gap, and what problems occur when it's too wide? You know, I did a gun yesterday, a new Smith that was at 8 thousandths up front, 8 or 9. That's big. Can't have it any bigger than that. Can't go into double digits. I think I discussed having one at 18 thousandths a while back, and that gun was loud. And when it went off, I had my phones on, and I told the guy next to me, "Was this loud? Could you hear that?" And he said, "Yes, it's very loud." And so full turn on your barrel is 27 thousandths. And so you really want to have to make up a bunch before you turn your barrel in. I like 4 or 5 thousandths. That's what I like. And I like 10 in the back. And I'm going to deviate here. People talk about endshake, front and rear. And 1,000 years ago, I had a guy from Smith in my store, one of their reps, and he saw a Model 27 I was working on, and he said, "A lot of endshake here." And I said, "You're like my dad. He would shake everything on a gun. If you have 4 thousandths up front and 10 thousandths in the back, end shake only means there's going to be room underneath your star to collect powder and dirt and still operate your cylinder. If you have it no end shake, butted up right against the back of the receiver, the recoil shield, and you get 3 flakes of unique under that on top of each other, it won't close. And so little end shake is good. I had one, God, was it today? No, it was yesterday. I was doing a brand new Smith, and there was no end shake, and it was tight. And I flip it open, and I look at the bluing on the recoil shield, right where the bushing rubs, and it had taken off an area of bluing because it was so tight in there. And so I pulled the star off the cylinder, put it in my South Bend, machined off 3,000, stuck it back in the gun. It was still tight. And so they really had it bindy in there, but now it would spin freely and it was okay. And so back to the cylinder gap, 18 gets loud, and I think anything over about 10, you got some big problems. You really want it down around 4 or 5 or 6. But if it gets too darn close, when they get dirty, they'll rub. Nelson, will your son follow your path and become a gunsmith? You know what? I wanted him to have paid vacations in a real life. If you're going to be a gunsmith, You're going to have people climbing down your throat your whole life, telling you what to do. You're not going to be able to take vacations because you won't be able to afford them. It's going to be a tough life, not unless you want to pack your store full of other people working on guns. And then those guns will have to be brought to me because there's problems with them. You can't expect a guy whose reputation isn't on the line to do something right on a gun. There are people with amazing conscience that do a good job, but there's guys a lot more skilled than I am. But you have to be backing your own work, and you have to be willing to give up your life. On one side of my vise, I stamped in pain, and on the other side, I stamped in, pain and effort. And that's what you have to give up. You have to give up pain and effort in order to do this job. And I can't believe I'm going to make it out the other side of this without dying. Well, I haven't gotten out of it yet. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed your videos. What do you think of the old Colt Diamondbacks? You know, all they are is a 1904 V-spring action. There are so many problems. They are fraught with peril. They have a step hand where they should be using a bypass hand. The cylinders don't want to come apart and go back together. There's no end to it. The way they timed the bolt drop on the cylinder, they were smart enough on the new Python to put the Smith and Wesson cylinder stop in the new Python. It's in there. Take the side plate off and look. And because they couldn't find people to make the old timing system work that worked off the trigger return bar and had a cam on it. Now I'm going to get too far into this. The cam on the side of the trigger return bar, there's a bar that takes the bottom half of that V-spring and returns your trigger. There's a cam on the side of it, and it works that bolt that goes up and down and stops your cylinder. That cam on the side of that trigger return bar is the same cam that they have in the 1873 Peacemaker on the side of the hammer. It's the same damn cam. And they put it in their double action revolvers. They couldn't come up with something new. And so they keep reaching back and trying to pull stuff up to the new guns. And that's only part of it. There's another thing that they do, that they try to bring along old Peacemaker ideas and put them in double action Colts. And what is the step hand? You know, this takes the cylinder where it needs to go at full cock. Well, it's a step hand, so once it gets to full cock, the cylinder's locked in place. And so if you're shooting double action and the hammer only comes back to here and falls, how are you going to set that up to at times for double action? You can't, because if you did, it wouldn't be able to come back to single. You got to pick. And on a Smith, it's a bypass. You can get that cylinder in place for the double action hammer to fall early like the double actions do. See, that's going to fall there. Not all the way back here, but there. So if I time it so it's in the cylinders where it belongs for double action, you won't be able to get it back to single action. It makes no sense to have them the double action guns. And so the Colt Diamondback, they're beautiful. They have the ventilated rib, they have soft action, the V-spring. They're cool. I love them. But they're not a Smith, and we can't confuse the two. I'm getting worked up. I better let this go. That's the end of the questions that were handed to me. At any rate, Eddie's got better things to do. He does his own gunsmithing. He works on stuff that I don't work on, and he's very adept to the new style tactical guns. So I work on the old stuff. Have a great day.